Yes, and our airport perhaps will open as well. So welcome Mayor Paula. I think we'll start off with our karakia. And yesterday at our session with our reo and tikanga session with Dan Runga, we learned about the importance of standing when we do that. We're closer to the divine one, and that can be whomever you choose it to be, actually. So, e tu everyone, and kia inoi tātou. Tuia e runga, tuia e raro, tuia e roto, tuia e waho, tuia na kaiamahi o te kaunahira o Kirikiriroa. Whaia ta iti kahurangi, kia u, kia mai, kia ta, haumi e, hui e, tai ki e. We also learned those actions, so if you want to learn more about the actions, come along to one of these sessions. It's enormously valuable, and we're most grateful to Dan for his enthusiasm and energy. So we start with our agenda this morning and apologies. For full absence, we have Councillor Naidoo-Rolfe and Councillor Thompson. Partial. Also an apology from Emma Pike, and a partial apology for Councillor Casey Cox, although I see her online now, so welcome Anna. You're not an apology for partial at all. Perhaps you'll leave before the meeting finishes though, so we'll accept that. Lateness for Councillor Donovan, and an early departure for Mayor Paula. Perhaps possibly also if the meeting extends beyond midday, then we have Deputy Mayor Angela and Deputy Chair Moko, who will be away to other council business. So if we could note that council business, that'd be much appreciated. Of course. Yes, and we acknowledge the huge workload of our Mayor and note her in and out perhaps through the meeting. And online we have Councillor Jeff, Councillor Anna and Councillor Hutt. Is Councillor Hutt also online? Thank you. I'll move. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Angela. And the agenda as it sits with you today. Do I have a mover? I'll move. Moved by Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Bidder. Any declarations of interest? If you'd note the interest of the meeting, thank you. And we have no one in the public forum speaking today, although I see you, Roger, and welcome you to the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, I'm fine.
Good-o. Now, 5, confirmation of the minutes, and you'll find those on page 6. Seven through to 10. Any matters requiring adjustment? Very well, I'll move, and seconded by Councillor Deputy Chair Moko. All those in favour? And we'll do the vote today with a show of hands or an aye. That's all good. Chair's report, page 11. I'll take it as read, noting though that we've had further long-term plan sessions, as I've mentioned in there, one that began with the all things finance. We've since had the opportunity to explore the perceptions and insights of our residents, and also have had the chance as member-only time to have a bit of a discussion about what our prioritisation of issues will be. and excellent sessions in the preparation and the setup for our long-term plan deliberations and decision making. Also did note though that we weren't all present at those meetings, and I found them enormously useful as a way to be able to make connections and have an understanding of our colleagues. So really do encourage you, I'm sure, as along with our Mayor and Deputy, to all participate at the very earliest. That's the real chance for us to be able to shape and set up our strategic directions. So I'll leave that there and invite any questions. Very well, there being none, I'll move, and Mayor Paula second. Yep, very good. Open that to you.
You don't want to talk into, but no.
No, I've done that in the introduction of it.
Just super quickly, just because I think it's really important for public to be aware that the capital program is something that we are looking at, understanding the huge pressures that puts ahead of us in this LTP with the massive amount of capital spend that we have to progress to build a city. But and just noting that, David, that you're going to give us some clearer insights into how that capital spend is done, so that we get into the real grit of the organisation, not just the discretionary number of projects that we might consider in an LTP. The balancing the books too, I'm still really keen to understand the different methodologies and why there's rigour in one methodology as opposed to another, and how that makes it sit for us. But, you know, Chair Maxine, it's an unusual time we're coming into with the LTP. It's going to be one of the hardest ones I think I've ever done. And, you know, and that's from speaking with Audit and Standard & Poor's and a whole bunch of other people who have got that macro level about the economy. And everybody's wondering how we're all going to get through the incredible burden that's ahead of local government. So, I just want to flag that we will be turning over every rock and stone to make it happen, but it is going to be incredibly challenging, and that the public might not see the same amount of discretional new projects come to the table as a result, because there is just very little squeak in our budget.
Thank you, Mayor Paula. Any other comments from other councillors? Very well. We'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise your hand. Oh, did we move in second? Yeah, we did, didn't we? Yep. And
vote is unanimous.
Thank you. Item number 7 to be presented. Yeah, if you would. Thank you. A capital portfolio monitoring report. And Ian, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Chair Maxine. Good morning, elected members. I'm joined this morning with Capital Projects Director Kelly Stokes. Kelly will be talking through the look back document in a few minutes. So what I'd like to do just is introduce the Capital Monitoring Report for the year ended 30th of June. You'll note in there we make reference that the financial results are draft. Just to clarify, we mean draft because the year-end results are still subject to external audit by Audit New Zealand, and that will kick off shortly, and then once those are finalised, the results are finalised. So that's why we use the word draft. I will just intro, as has been a custom over the last few years, we have produced a look-back document that takes a view of what was delivered by HCC over the past 12 months, and that was both an attachment within the document, and we've handed out a hard copy to you this morning, but Kelly will go through that in a bit more detail in a minute. What I'd like to do is just take you through a few key areas within the body of the report. Just emphasise a few of the key factors. The capital spend last year was 321 million. That was a 27% increase over the previous year, so quite substantial. And within the document, you will see we've graphed the last 6 or 7 years of capital spend, and you can see quite a significant upward trend over that period. The final deferrals for the year, 51.9 million. Now, though that actually represents a reduction on what we previously reported to the previous Finance Committee, where we reported 77.7. So that's just an indication of the amount of work and effort that was going out there throughout the year to get work done and make sure it was being completed in the time frame that we had reported to you and to the public. Just to know that 51.1, because timing is always an issue, that 51.9 million worth of deferrals has all been moved through, and it's all sitting in the current 23-24 financial year, so none of it has moved out past that point in time. We have 5 projects now listed as orange, having a risk attached to it. I'll take those as red. The 2 projects that are in there listed as, did I say orange? The 2 projects that are listed as red both relate to the Peacock's growth program. Initially there was a report coming to this committee in the PX section that's been moved to the council meeting on the 7th of September, where General Manager Andrew will be presenting a report now and outlining what those risks are associated with that project. I just want to pick up an embarrassing error. There is a change in numbers. I've got 2 numbers in there for my WIP balance at the end of the financial year. In paragraph 13, I mentioned a number of 670.8, and in paragraph 55, 669.3. Not a great difference, but still a difference all the same. The number in paragraph 55 is the correct number. It's just the numbers do tend to change around at the year end, and I wasn't that diligent in crossing my T's and dotting my I's. Just finally from me, you'll note we had to add a late recommendation to the report because if you reference paragraphs 44 through 54, you'll note that we are asking for authorisation from the committee or approval from the committee to bring 3 projects forward from the 24-25 year into the current financial year. A little bit unusual. We'd normally wait till we were in that financial year to do it and wouldn't do it as part of this report. But what we need is we need to give our staff confidence and the ability to go out and award contracts to get that work underway. So there's 3 projects in there. They're summarised under paragraph 52. And I won't go into the detail because I'm sure you read them, but we're happy to take any questions later. But so we are looking for that approval to bring those approved budgets forward from what we'll call year 4 into the current year 3. And again, it's really just because that work needs to be done and staff need that confidence and approval. So look, that's all I wanted to say on the report. So what I'm happy now is I'll hand over to Kelly and she'll just give us an overview of the look back document.
Thank you, Kelly. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chair Maxine. Ata marie e tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you very much for having me here today to talk about the wonderful year that was 22-23. It's seen the delivery of more than 321 million worth of capital projects through cross-council collaborations. The capital projects team delivers these on behalf of units within council, and they're my customers who I seek to delight every day. The past 12 months have seen the start of some new transport safety initiatives, the continuation of significant infrastructure to deliver housing in the Peacock area, and the completion of some really awesome community assets, including Waiwhakariki Entry Precinct, Te Awa River Ride, and Te Kete Aranui Mburututuna Library. The Hamilton Gardens Visitor Centre has begun, and significant water and wastewater upgrades have commenced. And for those of you at the briefing yesterday, I'm sure you can't get the image of 13 buses out of your head. So government funding has upped the ante for a lot of our work programs. In addition, for the planned projects, Council received $150 million for the Infrastructure Acceleration Fund, which is aiming to deliver infrastructure to support new homes in the central city. And we are on track to deliver the $37 million Climate Emergency Response Fund SURF transport program. Overall, the 3-year portfolio is on track to be delivered to expectations that were set in the 21-31 long-term plan. And this is despite some major disruptions in the 3-year period, which of course includes a COVID pandemic, but there's also been some severe weather events such as Cyclone Gabriel, which has diverted services to other parts of the country. But we've got really good relationships with our contractors and our consultants. And we work very hard together to create the right balance of in-house and external expertise to deliver value for money that's in the long-term interests of Hamiltonians. I'm very happy to take any questions you have on the look back document.
Thank you, Kelly. Just before we take those questions, can I just commend you on that document? It's a great way for Hamiltonians to see our stories told in a really simple and easy way with pictures. And they've, I'm sure, seen or experienced some of the disruption perhaps, but can see some great outcomes as a result of that. And so thank you for that, and hopefully we can use this kind of model in other storytelling that our council uses. Kia ora. Now, questions I'm happy to take, and the first of those, Mayor Paula.
Oh, thank you, and thank you for this. I presume there'll be some online version or something that we can share with the community. Yeah?
Definitely.
Cool.
This is a limited print run just for you.
Excellent. So we can find that online from now, from after this meeting, or just
I'm
out?
not sure when it's published.
If you could.
We didn't attach a copy in the agenda, but I'll talk to our comm staff about making sure
Yeah,
that this
yeah,
is
because we
published.
always want to be able to share that, you know, instead of making our own content, it would be really good to share yours, which is so good.
Of course.
Just in terms of my question though, was about the transport centre that I saw had a red line by it, which concerns me greatly. Now, can we explain to me what that does to the timing and completion of the transport centre? Because I'm not going to be happy if it's pushed back lots and lots. Just saying.
So I'll pick that one up.
Okay.
I don't mind who.
So on the transport centre, we've you beware we've done a lot of work, and we're at a point we just need to circle back to the Infrastructure and Transport Committee just to confirm the scope and the direction of travel. So we're on target to spend effectively the allocated budget on things that elected members wanted for the transport centre. You know, weather improvements, toilets, security upgrades.
Did that go through, how do you know what the elected members, did that go through your committee? Did I miss it?
Yeah, from the onset of the project and when it was originally started.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, I haven't recently been asked what I want from that project, but I think you know. But
Yeah.
however.
Yeah, so that's why we're due to come back to the Transport Committee now, because the work we've done says we can spend the budget effectively, or we could spend a lot more money, depending on the role the Transport Centre will play in the strategy of the CBD. So over the last year, we've got IAF funding that's looking at the Anglesey Street and how that will fit with the connections, RT1 connections to the base. So there is a bit of a strategic discussion of how much does council want to spend on the transport centre and the life of the transport centre. So we are on target to start the works, but we just need to come back to the transport centre at the moment.
So what's the projected delivery date of that? When are you getting it started? When are you likely to get started, and when is it going to be completed?
Our target would be to contractually commit and start the works this financial year.
Oh, cool. So not too much of a delay. It's just a scope, the exercise. How big or how many things do you want in that?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll probably speak to that in debate, but thanks for that. Thank you.
Just confirming that the 321 mil is our spend only, Hamilton City Council, and it's not a shared spend across other councils. I was just picking up on one of the statements that you made about
Cross-council
Cross
collaboration
councils.
within council. Yeah, that's correct. It is just Hamilton City Council spend.
And just a clarification on that, it's our gross spend, so a lot of our project gets subsidy from Waka Kotahi. So it's our projects, but some of the projects are subsidised by other parties.
yeah, can't point.
And just to further add this, so the capital revenue associated with the delivery of that program was 72 million.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any further questions? Very well. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Maxine. Thanks for the very attractive brochure, Kelly. tell me, the deferrals of 51 million that we've now moved one financial year, what inflationary rate did we add, if any?
I'm going from memory, Councillor Wilson. I think we went back to February. We indicated to the council we were going to be applying an inflationary factor to, and we'd done the, sorry, apologies, I haven't got that in front of me. We did some analysis over those works that we were going forward, contractually committed, so those did not need an inflationary factor, and then we applied an inflationary factor to those ones we did not to mitigate any risk. I'm happy to reconfirm that number and come back to you, but we certainly have made an allowance for it or acknowledged it.
That's great. It would help me going forward that whenever there is a report on deferrals, that you break it into the ones that were contractually committed and thus have no cost escalation versus those that weren't and have a cost escalation risk, just so that we can all be mindful of the ramifications.
Yep.
Thank you. My second question, Chair, is to my good friend Chris. Chris, what lessons, if any, have we learnt from the last 12 months that we'll take into the next 12 months when it comes to our ability to deliver our projected capital projects? Because we've missed it by 51 million, and that's a lot better than we had thought. Well done, good. But I'm trying to get to a day when actually what we say we'll do is what we do. And my theory is we just say we're going to do less and then surprise the ratepayer when we deliver more. Maybe that's a strategy.
Yep, so what you're talking to, Councillor Ewan, is really our long-term plan and how we construct our long-term plan, because that's the next opportunity we got. All I can say at the moment is we're acutely aware of the issue, and we're putting a lot of work into, what we call deliverability of the 10-year plan, but also into how we might cash flow that and look at techniques to deliver just exactly what you said. We want to be in a position, ideally, that we're coming to you to bring money forward rather than to push money out. So that's what we're looking at. That's what we're looking to as a LTP team. We may be coming to you and talking to you about, at the moment you've allowed us to put renewals and compliance into a 3-year program. Maybe there's some opportunity to look at our whole capital program in that sense to deal with the issue you're talking about. But that'll be a point of engagement with elected members as we work through the LTP with you.
Cool. Thank you.
Anything further, Councillor Wilson? No? Thank you. Any further questions? Online, I have Councillor Casey Cox.
Kia ora, yeah, just a quick question. I'm looking at these capital projects and I'm assuming they're just the bigger ones that are presented on the dashboard. I guess I'm always looking for the investment we made into the lake, the capital investment. It's been deferred, I know, but I'm just wondering what the criteria is for making the list on the dashboard. Is it just a size thing? Just looking for the update on that project, really.
So I'll pick that one up again. So on the dashboard, when we came to you, the very first report at the start of the 3-year period, we'd set out for you then what we thought were some of the key project achievements would be. If we got to the end of the 3 years and we'd done these, that would look like success. So I guess we just selected a few projects, presented them to council. We didn't have any feedback, so I guess that would have been the opportunity then.
Okay, sorry, when was that? At the beginning of the 3 years?
Yeah, so that would have been very soon after June 2021.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I mean, I think the lake is a significant feature in our city, so I would like to see it have a little bit more prominence, but that's just my own interest, I guess. But yeah, we'll have that discussion again.
Yep,
Yeah.
we're sort of happy to pick up at any time reporting on any project of interest. If the elected members want to just talk to us offline, I'm sure we can
Okay.
weave that into our reporting.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you for your questions, Councillor Casey Cox. Are there any further? There being none, I'll put that we move the motion with the amendment of B, recommends that council approve the bringing forward of those 3 capital projects and under 45 to 52, does that sound right? Summarised in paragraph 52, I beg your pardon. Very good. So I'll move that. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Wilson. And I'll open the debate. Thank you. I commented, Kelly, on the great storytelling that you presented through the look back, and think that that's a great storytelling example that we can use in further council communications with our public. It's critically important that people have an understanding of some of the disruption that they see around their city and have a good understanding of what the benefits of those will be for them as residents, not only in their own suburbs but beyond that. In terms of our capital delivery, 321 million is huge, and we must be proud of the effort and the work that's gone into being able to deliver that. A bit of a science, I guess, on being able to predict what you'll be able to deliver, and so putting that additional $52 million in the program and not being able to deliver on it is disappointing, but completely understandable in the times that we find ourselves. In noting that, to Councillor Wilson's point, the need to add the depreciation is really important. I know that if we go back to the looking back, that Rototuna residents must be absolutely delighted with their new library. It's not just Rototuna residents, actually. Many that I've spoken to since its opening have lived in other parts of the city and have been a little bit like tourists going up and checking it out, and I'm sure have aspirations for their own template in their own local suburbs. So a good piece of work, well done. I also, and with your indulgence, I'm coming to the end of my time, but have to comment on the Te Awa cycleway. I had family from Holland who we took on there quite proudly to show them this excellent piece of infrastructure that we've got in our city for enjoyment, and they were blown away. So it's great to have these excellent pieces of kit in our own city that we can use and show with pride, and it helps to build our city up to the beautiful place that it actually is. So kia ora, with your indulgence, thank you for that. Councillor Wilson, seconder.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Maxine. I want to join you in congratulating the staff on delivering the significant capital project. 321 million is a large amount of money and a large amount of very worthwhile and meaningful projects. So well done, team, in what is a very difficult trading environment, both locally, nationally and globally. Like all organisations, we thrive for improvement. And so where I'm looking forward to working with colleagues is, as Chris has suggested, and I think his golden nugget today of his answer was working on the LTP to look at a 3-year block in terms of some of our, how we manage some of these capital projects. And I can't help but feel that one of the ways we need to start thinking is we try to say we're going to do less, move things into later years, right? And then encourage staff to come to us and say, hey, look, we've got a window here that we weren't expecting. The construction season's going well. The weather's been great. We believe we can do this, this, and this, and we're going to drag these quantums forward. So instead of having deferrals, we won't be having deferrals in the same quantum. And so there is a day when we will actually not have deferrals. I'm hopeful. So that was it.
Hallelujah. Thank you. Mayor Paula.
Yeah, I agree with some of the points that Ewan has made there. Yeah, it's all about that kicking the can down the road concept. You have to pay for things sooner or later, and you have to deliver projects sooner or later. So well done on the incredible progress we've made. My comment is more to do with no matter how much we have done with this incredibly much bigger budget, what's coming around the corner in the future in terms of infrastructure delivery and capital spend will make this look quite small, I would imagine. So that's my concern, is that and I really want the general public and our ratepayers to understand the pressures that we face as a growing city in providing houses and water infrastructure and roading infrastructure, the infrastructure in place for businesses to come here and thrive, and all of those things that we do need. That you can't, as Ewan says, you can't keep deferring things either, because eventually you just really, really need them then. So this work that the staff are doing around alternative funding tools becomes really critical, and we have to really think about how we fund ourselves going forward. But another thing I'm really favourable to is thinking about how we work across boundaries with other people, across some more programs. David, we were talking about one yesterday with information services and so on. I want to save a little bit of time to talk about the Transport Centre, because I have occasionally felt a little bit disappointed with delays in the progress to the Transport Centre, because I understood it was identified as a critical need. We were going to do it. I hope, Chris, that the scope still includes a significant element of CPTED, crime prevention through environmental design, for those listening, which means that it will be a safer place to, as a hub for our transport, was absolutely necessary, because at the moment it's not always a pleasant or perceived to be a safe place, and we really need to adjust that as a city precinct. So I don't always just want it to be rainproof and easier to wait at, etc., and more efficient for the buses. I actually want it to be somewhere where people feel they can hang out with absolute security and catch passenger transport from there. So I'll be watching. I'll be interested in that next conversation. I'll have a few things that I want to say, but I'm hoping the work we're doing in partnership with the police is progressing, and we are getting a very early look at what's required to make that precinct safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Paula. Any other speakers? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, if you would raise your hand.
The vote was unanimous.
Thank you. I'll invite to the chair our Financial Director, Tracy Musty, for item 8. Page 39 on your reports, colleagues. Kia ora, Tracy.
Good morning.
Floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Max. Good morning, elected members. So today I am presenting to you the draft full year results for the year 2022-23. And as mentioned by Ian earlier, these are draft numbers that we're currently still working on due to the annual report. These results will be audited during September and October, with the final report being approved by Council on Tuesday the 31st of October. The 2022-23 financial year has certainly been full of many challenges, not only for our council but for all organisations both nationally and internationally. We have faced increased cost headwinds such as higher interest costs, higher inflation, which has also led to higher depreciation costs. We've also had challenges from the market on deliverability. We've experienced our own issues with weather events and the additional clean-up and support needed. This is a coordinated response across many of our activities in council, from the call centre, waters and transport teams, and of course our parks and city delivery teams. We were also engaged in the civil defence deployments. The Auckland weather bomb and Cyclone Gabrielle saw our HCC CDEM team staff deployed to affected areas across North Island to support the response and recovery efforts in affected areas of the North Island. 48 of our staff were deployed to Auckland, Thames, Hawke's Bay and to the Waikato Regional Operations Centre. So half of those staff had not previously been deployed. We've seen a reduction in the number of resource and building consents, which has meant a significant reduction in revenue across both our building control and planning guidance. In the City Planning Unit, there was a large spend in response to the National Policy Statement. This work culminated in Plan Change 12 and 2 other major expenses relating to Plan Change 5 and Plan Change 9. We have, however, obviously had some great news stories as well. Alongside FIFA, the events team had the Super Rugby semi-final and the Darts Masters, as well as increased conferencing activity. While we've had some unbudgeted costs associated with the application and preparation of the Infrastructure Acceleration Fund, this did mean we were successful in being given a $150 million grant. Meeting our efficiency savings and vacancy factor has been quite challenging, but I would like to share some of the work the team has been doing behind the scenes to continue to drive efficiencies and continuous improvements across Council. The team has been working on the new digital workplace that will improve collaboration and increase productivity. We've been reducing our recycling bin contamination so that with workflow automation. We're trying to continue to standardise the way we deal with and respond to customer feedback so we can identify and address root cause of problems. We've created an administration centre of excellence. We've changed the way we recognise some of our revenue to align it more with the expenses. And for the last 4 months of the year, we've had a real focus on controlling personnel costs, including slowing down filling some of our vacant roles. If you look at our Statement of Comprehensive Revenue and Expenses, which is on page 49 of Diligent, Council ended the 22-23 year with a surplus of $145.5 million against a budget of $53 million. This is what we refer to as accounting result, and if we would compare ourselves to other councils, this would be the result you would actually use. This result takes into consideration all of our revenue, both capital and operating, and then our operating expenses. There are a lot of up and downs when you look at each line individually, but increases in subsidy and grants, which is money that we got from government, but you'll also see there are increases in costs in personnel and consultants, for example. Some of the other key contributors to this result is invested assets and the HIF loan, and of course our finance costs. I also just wanted to mention that while we have our own balancing the books measure to Mayor Paula's comment before, ours is much more conservative than the government one, and indeed a number of the other councils. So if we were to take our government balancing the books, we actually sit at a $20 million surplus. And I just want to note now, so we are obviously looking at that as part of the LTP. The main difference between the government one and our own one is they include some capital revenue, and we strip that out. So capital revenue goes to the capital spend. We just look at our everyday expenses versus our everyday revenue. So that's the main difference between the two. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Tracy. Thanks for that. And the first questions are from Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Tracy, for your report. I'd like to have a chat about that last point, our balancing of the books versus the government model. Could you tell me how many other councils follow the government example versus our example? Are we the only one that's using the method we're using?
So the government one we all have to do, and if you go right to the very back of the annual report, it's in everyone's annual report. So no, every council does something quite differently. They might have different versions of balancing the books, or in some cases they won't at all. So the two things that they will have to have is that Statement of Comprehensive Income, which I talked about, and the government balancing the books. And then it's up to each council to do whatever they like in between that.
So why has it been our policy to use the balancing of the books process that we currently use? Who brought it in? and why?
Me. And so that's a really great question. So one of the things when I arrived in this role a long time ago was the government balancing the books, or the balancing the books that we were using at the time, had a lot of capital money included in it. And at the time, that was obviously mainly around DCs. Our DC revenue was averaging about $6 to $9 million a year. The year I arrived, I think we hit 16, and I think the year after it hit 24. So for me in this role, to try and identify that everyday expenses and everyday revenue and be really true, I didn't think it was appropriate to have capital revenue included in a balancing the books type calculation. One of the differences from, I guess, commercial and coming into local government is that in our statements they include a lot of the capital revenue, which is quite different to what I'm used to. So as part of the 2018 long-term plan, Council agreed to change that calculation and basically strip out all of your capital-related revenue. A small portion of DC revenue comes back in for interest in bits and pieces, but the rest of it's stripped out. So it really genuinely is everyday revenue versus everyday costs. To the extent if I get one-off things come in, I will exclude it as well, unless I have the revenue and the costs as both.
This is a tricky question. So on reflection, are you still comfortable with the model that you've moved to? It seems logical to me. Mm-hmm. It's the truth. Mm-hmm. It's quite unpalatable at times, but it is the truth.
Yep.
Or are you either yourself moving to change your position to a different, or are you being encouraged to move to a different way to make it slightly more palatable?
No, so I'm certainly not wanting it to be more palatable. What I'm looking at is going back to the true calculation and what is it there for and what is it supposed to represent. So as part of this annual plan, long-term plan, we are working on a piece behind the scenes to revisit every single line that goes into that calculation. There is two probably that I'm still not convinced of. One is SaaS, so software as a service. Yeah. So whether or not we take a portion of that or the whole lot of that. So that's still up for discussion. And then the other one is probably around depreciation revaluations. So again, what are we trying to do with depreciation? What is it there for? What rates money are we collecting from it? And then what is that paying for? Is it paying for the next year's worth of renewals? Fundamentally it is, but revaluations are designed to actually pay for future renewals and future maintenance. So do we really want to keep that as part of the calculation? So those are probably the two big ones that we've got, and obviously we'll work through with Council to decide if that's where we want to go or not. Everything else I'm pretty comfortable with.
Final question. When you land on your recommendation, mm-hmm. which will come to elected members, mm-hmm. Will part of your thinking be how we would then communicate a shift, if there is a shift? Because it looks on the face of it, if we shift the matrix or the model or how we do it, the balancing of the book equation will look much better.
Potentially, but yes, we will have to communicate that. The other thing I understand from the last committee meeting, we've put our definitions and things like that on the website as well to explain debt to revenue ratio and those sorts of things. So and we can put that definition up. And literally how it's calculated on there as well. But yeah, absolutely open to communication. And I can also compare, if you really wanted me to, and show you what the difference is if we change. That's an if we change.
Final question, if I could, and I know I've had just final question. I'm a little concerned about the reduction in revenue that we're seeing from DCs.
From DCs?
From...
Consents.
Consents.
Yep.
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 Is it within the parameter of what you thought it would be, or is it way outside? I mean, is it something that's keeping you up at night, or are you...
I think from my personal point of view, we've had a good couple of years with consents. If I look back over the last 2 or 3 years of revenue, they were the ones that saved our day, to be quite honest, sort of through COVID, and it certainly ramped up. This year it's down, and you'll find when we bring through LTP results, we're also budgeting for that to be down as well. So, unless Blair, you want to add kind of anything else from I think we had a good run, and it's kind of...
Look, we've I think Tracy summed it up well, Councillor Ewan, but we've had 5 years of super revenue, particularly the last 2 to 3 years. It has absolutely contributed to significant financial results in the last few years. The LTP will reflect for the first couple of years it's going to be weak. It will come back over time. Correspondingly, in those areas, we're looking hard at our costs as well. But ultimately, and also looking at the fee level relative to the consent costs as well, to look to move those up. But ultimately, I would say that there will be a net cost for a period of time that we will be unable to recover until we get back to a high level of consents. And it's just a reflection of what the market is experiencing at the moment, and balancing the need to retain capability and specialist skills as we ride that through.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. David, comment from you?
If I can just add a couple of points to the discussion around balancing the books. Firstly, when we changed to the current voluntary measure that we use, which is voluntary, it was really based around the financial guiding principle of everyday costs meeting everyday revenue. So when we talk about what elements are in the balancing the books, it's not the construction elements, it's actually standing back and saying, is this a true everyday cost and is this a true everyday revenue? The last point I'll make is other councils, I believe, mask their true operating costs of balancing the books by taking capital out, and we know that, for example, development contributions, the whole purpose of that is to repay debt. It shouldn't be used to pay for electricity costs, etc., etc. So I think when we support the review of balancing the books, what we need to ask ourselves is are the elements in the balancing the books calculation an everyday cost, and are they everyday revenue, so that we can actually transparently and honestly say to our community, this is what it costs to run the council.
Thank you, David. Mayor Paula.
Just on that, I mean, I was surprised to see this open up as conversation now, because I think I'm right in saying that all you've been asked to do is to bring some transparency to the methodology and pose some questions for the elected members. So nothing, there's been no direction to change or anything. It's just to show us how it's calculated and why it's calculated that way, right? And then we would discuss the ramifications. So there has been no political directive other than that. There hasn't been. I did. I said, is that right? That's the question. Thank you.
It's genuinely, that's part of my role as part of the LTP, is to re-look at that particular and look at all of our financial strategies. That's why we had the financial strategy session with you earlier, just to check in to make sure that those principles and what we're doing and those calculations are still valid for this LTP. Remembering we can only make those changes at an LTP time. So no, this is definitely a staff thing.
Cool. Thank you.
Councillor Bidder.
I think Anna had her hand up first.
Line to Councillor Casey Cox.
Kia ora. Thank you, Tracy. Just, I guess a question with regards to the government's way of doing it. Is it possible that I know that we could just stick with the way we do it now. Is it possible that we could also present, I guess, just that information so that we can compare ourselves with other councils using that method, if that's the way they do it? So we can we could present both, or is that just a huge amount of work that's on you to be able to do that?
No, if you wanted in this report that I bring to you, if you wanted me to include both of them in there, that's absolutely fine to do. Happy to do that.
Yeah.
It's in the we definitely put it in the annual report right at the back. So we calculate it anyway. It's easy enough for us just to set it up and put that graph in if that's what you would like us to do.
And I think,
Cool,
as
thank you.
Mayor Paula has suggested, that conversation can happen around our further discussions in our long-term plan, and we can
Yeah.
make decisions about how we report that going forward after that discussion, and
Yes,
after
absolutely.
we've talked about the elements that
Yep,
you've
happy to do that.
highlighted today. Councillor Casey Cox, was there further questions?
Just a quick question around the depreciation and valuation of our parks. Just interested in how come there was a sort of a surprise increase, or perhaps a unexpected cost there in terms of depreciation, I think, if I read that right.
Yes, that's right. So there's a couple of things. Obviously, when we set the original LTP, we're talking about 3 years ago, trying to obviously figure out what those budgets were going to be. Each annual plan, we try and reassess that and figure out what those increased costs will come out for the revaluation. It's probably one of the hardest jobs that we have, and I guess crystal balling that as far as what are those unit rates and what those revaluations will come back at. So they've obviously, again, because of everything that we've always talked about and have been talking about for the last year, markets, interest rates, inflation and all of those sorts of things, obviously that goes straight through to having an effect on what the value of our assets are. So the value of our assets goes higher, so we're now sitting at $6 billion worth of assets that we have on our books. The consequences of that is obviously our depreciation increases as well. So on the one hand, it's a great news story, and on the other hand, it's obviously, someone has to pay to then look after those and maintain them and replace them in future years.
I imagine the costs for parks and the maintenance of those is increasing with our more extreme weather events, and that sort of thing is having an impact there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anna. Councillor Bitter.
Thank you, Chair Max. There is a small pleasant surprise in paragraph 37 of a reduction in insurance costs of about $200,000. I was just sort of quite surprised by that, because my insurance keeps going up every year. So just wondering who your insurance was. Is there a reason for that? And in future years, are we expecting insurance to go up because of things like the cyclones and stuff?
Yes, sorry, I've just lost my report. So a couple of parts to that. Sorry, I just want to find my paragraph.
Yeah.
Sorry, Andrew.
What paragraph?
37.
37. Property costs. Oh yeah. So again, from a budgeting perspective, when we budgeted for it, the insurance year runs from November to November, so it's out of sync with our budget. So same explanation that I just gave as far as timing and things like that. When we did the original budget, we assumed, I think it was something like 20 to 30% of an increase on our premiums. So that would have been done sort of March. In the year. We then send someone over to London who deals with all our insurance brokers and does all the deals. They come back, and then we obviously do and lock in the premiums. So there is sort of a timing difference, and always will be, because of the nature of it. You're right though, Julia's just working on those premiums and what they look like, especially for the LTP, and unfortunately there will be an increase in cost. Again, nature of the market and the prices that we're getting. But the other thing to remember for us too is we're a growth council, and you've just heard that we had a $322 million program of works. That's all assets, and they all need to be insured. So we have definitely a combination of both, so volume and price, every single year. So, the more you spend, the more we've got to pay.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Very well, thank you. Moved by Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Donovan. To you, Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thanks, Maxine. Thank you for the staff for the report. I mean, at the end of the day, the obvious problem for me is the $13.3 million variation in the balancing of the books. And that's not a good look, and it's not a good story. And then the underlining narrative is a general discussion of, well, we're going to do something about that. And one of the things we're talking about is changing the matrix or the model of how we calculate the balancing of the books. So an average punter out there will go, they came out with a methodology which sounded pretty sensible. They've measured against it for a few years. They've never been able to live within it. And now, oh, look, they're changing the methodology and suddenly things are looking much brighter. Now, I'm just saying, I don't know if that's true. I'm just saying that that's clearly an issue as elected members we're going to have a meaningful and candid conversation about. Because I didn't come up with the original model. Very capable, talented people did. It told us what they felt was the truth, and we keep having variances that are pretty unpalatable. So if we change, I think some will be some will be concerned about that. But I've got an open mind. If in fact we have fundamentally got it wrong, or that it's no longer fit for purpose, however we land, we're going to have to communicate it. And I look forward to hearing how we're going to do that. That's it.
Thank you. Mark, is seconded. Did you want to make a comment now, or would you like to? No? Very well. Mayor Paula.
Just springboarding off that last debate, don't disagree with much that's been said there. I'm really looking forward to the conversation coming in the LTP when we see all parts of the financial pressure and so on together, and then we can weigh up. I do believe in transparency, and that's why I'm quite pleased that we're able to, especially with a newish, I don't like to call you new after this period of time, but a council that hasn't been through the LT before, you've got to look at everything and you've got to communicate that with the public. And so actually today, I guess, and this has been quite helpful in socialising some of the aspects of that with the public to think about ahead of time. So I welcome that also. I looked at the report and, there are some areas in the operational costs that personnel costs and operating and maintenance, professional costs, admin, that haven't been able to pay for themselves, and so that's something to consider. And of course Lance has been charged with some considerable savings across that he has no choice but to deliver on our behalf. That's been set for him. So I think we need to look at the whole of the financial business of council. I actually think there's merit in some kind of consistency up and down the country, but that doesn't mean we dispense with the other method. It just means that we should always have a transparent, and I did hear the words back page used a couple of times in terms of where it sits currently in the annual report. So it doesn't sit one measure alongside another, so it's really hard to have that transparency of why we've done what we've done, which is a good debate. It's a really good debate, and the reasons that you've given, Councillor Wilson, are really good points for people to consider in that debate. So yep. And anyway, thank you for the good work to the finance team as usual. It's very complex. We're one hell of a complex business, actually.
Thank you, Mayor Paula. Any other comments from the committee? No? I'll just add a couple of things in there. I think Councillor Wilson's picking up on the kind of frustration that I've had over the term of my tenure, and that we use a different measure to other councils, and completely legitimate reasons. And I think Tracy has outlined the rigour around which she looks at what those measures should be. They're endorsed by us as a council and are fundamental principles that we do business by. However, we do shoot ourselves in the foot sometimes by presenting that, and it makes us look as though we aren't as prudent as potentially we could be. If, for example, we're presenting a deficit to balancing our books year after year after year. And in my report, I talked about it being a unicorn to find. But I think really what it is being able to shed light on the difference that we take to that measure. And Mayor Paula's quite rightly identified putting those two together to be able to show us in potentially a more favourable light, that it isn't us unfairly being imprudent about the spending that we do and the measures that we have on our books. So I think the opportunity for us as elected members to have that better understanding through our long-term plan is invaluable. Also, the storytelling that we are able to take then out to our public will help to, I think, definitely put us in a much better light for future conversations. That said, there's an awful lot to be thankful for about these results as well, and there are some honourable mentions that we need to make in there. Our CE has found some savings through holding back on recruitment. That's a task that we asked him to take up. Our HIF loan negotiations again save us a couple of $1 million. And there's various other savings that we've made through here, so all of which help us to be able to show that fuller, more true picture of the work that we're doing. So thank you to the meeting, and I'll put that vote. Oh, I beg your pardon. Councillor Ewan.
It's an IQ test, yep. Look, I've enjoyed listening to the debate, and I look forward to the LTP. My approach to this, however, I just remind everybody, is that the current methodology is both transparent and a single point of truth. All it does is it takes everyday cost versus everyday revenue, and it tells us what the problem is. Simple as that. And that is, we spend more in an operational context than the revenue we earn. That's it. Transparent, clear. Not a good result. We've got to either get more revenue or spend less. Nothing more, nothing less.
Thank you. I'll put that vote. All those in favour, raise your hand. And against?
The motion was carried unanimously.
Thank you, colleagues. And now item 9. I'll put that we move to a public excluded. Seconded by Councillor Moko. All those in favour, raise your hand. Aye. Thank you. And perhaps this is an opportunity for us to have a quick morning tea break.